Okay, and welcome to the Legion Academy. I am Sean Morris. It says here I'm hosting with Joe DePinto, but that is clearly not Joe DePinto. Joe is currently, as you guys know, I think he pointed out. Fair enough. I got a comment here. Want to seeing a rocket launch at 000. Sorry, no rockets here. But Joe is currently out, as you guys know. He was suffering from an eye injury. That injury is going to be taken care of, and that surgery is going to be upcoming. But it's a lot for Joe to be on here right now. So we took a couple weeks off. But he is going to have that surgery pretty soon. I think he might make a quick appearance next week. Just prior to surgery. We'll wish him well. Then he'll have a little bit of a recovery time. Be a couple more weeks before he'll be able to return full time. But I plan on trying to do as many shows as I can and get some co-hosts. So found this guy here on the streets. Really, he was sorting sand on the other side of the room, so we thought we'd bring him in. So Jace, welcome. How's it going?
Hey, doing pretty good.
Awesome. So if you guys don't know Jace Pippin here works in the terrain studio, and he actually does sort sand on occasion. So that is a joke, but also a reality. But it's not just Jace and I tonight. Actually, I'm gonna slide over here real quick. We have a few other co-hosts or guests tonight. So you guys are all on screen there. So if you don't recognize the folks that are up there, we have Douglas Kropp and we have Matt Kisch. I'm not sure, Douglas, do you want us to call you Sploosh tonight, or what do you want to go by?
Can mix it up, you know.
Okay,
Probably
fair
the
enough.
internet people know me as Sploosh.
Awesome, fair enough. So I will call Jace a number of things, and likely his mom will call later because he'll have to head home for bedtime. So we can't keep the show too long tonight. But thanks for coming on, Doug and Matt. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no sweat. So Matt, bear with us as we worked through some stuff. Apparently Skype has done a new update, and the update is just disallows all the cool features that they had before. So it's a really good update for Skype. So just had to go install the old version, and we got that the kinks worked out tonight. So I'm going to slide real quick back over to Jason and I here for a minute. So what we're going to do tonight, folks, is going to be a very light episode. We're going to be talking about a host of things. Jace is going to talk about his run in Invader League. I'm going to talk about my dive into TTS. We're going to ask Doug to pick apart Jace's list. Matt's going to show us all the cool things and talk about all the cool things that he's been painting. Of course, if Doug's been painting, he can share that as well. Jace does some painting, and occasionally I commission some people to do some painting. But actually, I did actually do some hobby work, so I'm going to talk about that as well. So let's just bring everybody that we can here on camera in the best format that we can. And I think if we do it this way, and maybe we'll bring Doug on, and we'll get rid of me, so you'll just hear my voice and you won't see my picture, but everyone's on there. So first question, and it's not an interview by any means, but how are you guys doing during the COVID era, and how has that impacted your Legion playing? We'll start off with let's go with Matt, because he's front and center here.
Well, not much in-person Legion happening, unfortunately, but I have started on TTS with some friends here and there. Not a huge fan of it, so I didn't do Invader League, but it's better than nothing. So it's not bad. I'm maybe getting one game in a week.
All right, Doug, how about yourself?
Well, I don't want to get into it, but Invader League hasn't been an option for me this season. And I have been very involved in conversations about list building and going over the results of Invader League, keeping things, basically trying to figure out what's going on with the game. As far as, actually funny, so this is like the first time Matt and I have seen each other. We were actually supposed to be roommates for Worlds. I don't even know if Matt's aware of this. It was through like Ghost Walking and stuff. And
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, we were going to stay in the same room. And so that's obviously a bummer. I did play in the makeup Worlds thing. I don't know did you get to do that, Matt, or I know Sean
I
didn't.
watched some of it, but again, I wasn't even on TTS at that point.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like 9 hours of play. So that was a lot of gaming, and that was good for me because I don't know about everyone listening, but I only paint when I'm inspired, usually by a deadline. So Worlds was like extremely motivating, and as soon as Worlds was canceled, I just like flatlined. And actually, weird coincidence today, I primed two ATs, which was I was going to play at Worlds, and I really believe I would have done well. And then let's see, I got it Iden, the Do, and then I did all the vital assets, and that's it for Legion. Then I did a bunch of stuff for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Just I did play in Marvel Crisis Protocol first season League on TTS, which is really awesome. It seems like they've been working with the people who are doing Legion's TTS, so they've got the tools and all the same stuff. It's been really cool. I came in second in that tournament last season, and now this season I'm undefeated at 4-0 into the next season. So I've seen a few people bushfax, and I met a bunch of people from Legion while playing in that league, so that was kind of cool. It's kind of small world stuff, but yeah. So that's pretty much what I've been up to. I got a beard too. I don't know if anybody remembers what I looked like a year ago at the Northeast Open, but I had a nice clean face, and I've decided not to shave until probably like Halloween or so. See how that goes. Ride it out.
Awesome.
I've never had a beard before, so it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, Doug, you opened up so many things that I'm going to revisit as soon as I get Jace here, because some questions. We definitely are going to talk AAAT. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a point of connection, because I'm not sure if everyone knows everyone, but it'll be fun because we can kind of talk about how we've either met or know each other, because when you talk about small world, it is small, but then it kind of opens up. We got all these point of connections. You guys are going to be roommates, so who knows? You guys could have said how smelly each other were, but now you can't. So, all right. So
We'll never know.
yeah, you'll never know. Awesome. All right, Jace, give us your COVID-19. So usually Jace is like living here. Like I haven't seen this guy in like 3 months, which is kind of weird. So
I'm usually here like 3 times a week.
yeah. So I have more food now, which is weird, but
And I am less belly now.
all right. So tell us about your COVID times.
Oh man, my COVID times have been pretty boring. I haven't got to do much Legion, obviously no in-person Legion. I've got like 1 game a week on TTS, mostly only because of Invader League. That's pretty much it. I had the option to play in their Fake Worlds one that they did, but I also had finals that same week and decided that was just too much. So I've just been spending most of my time mostly just painting, just crunching out my backlog of units that I have. I think this is the first time since like 3 months after release that the only things that I have to paint are the stuff I picked up 4 days ago. So yeah, that's pretty much all the Legioning I've been doing.
Awesome. This is not about paint shaming here. Just pointing that out.
That's impressive, by the way. I'm impressed by that.
And yeah, just lean it a little bit further forward, Jace. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. So just because you're a bit quiet, there's chat saying so. You were referred to as Hat Guy, by the way. So okay. Which is awesome.
Perfect.
Okay. So before we get into too many things here, let's just do a quick point of connection, just so we can figure out how everyone either knows what events you might have run into each other at. So Doug, you and I played at LVO.
First time, season 1 or whatever they call it, 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2019. I recall that game greatly, as I was super sick by that point. So I had such a bad weekend. I don't remember if you know that I was sick, but I was trying to do my very best to get that game done and over with. I definitely could not have used my invite because I had a baby coming right shortly after that. But the most memorable part of that game, we both had Boba Fett in our list. I just remember that I told Doug that I was going to shoot everything and always at his Veers, and I'm not sure how many we got up to, but I in my vague memory, I think might have been like 11 or 13 suppression we got on his Veers in that game. So that's what I'll always remember about that. And of course, Doug jumping over a wall with Boba Fett to steal the box and jumping back over the wall so I couldn't see it. But that I digress about that play. we did have a really fun game, and I just lament the fact that I was so sick. But I think that was the first, and I think maybe I don't think we've run
This
into.
this is the Boba Fett.
Yeah, that is the Boba Fett. Fantastic. Look at that.
He's my
Um,
favorite, man.
I don't think we've run into each other any more events. I don't think since then, have we?
We probably. Oh yeah, no, no. There's high. Yeah, no. I think my next encounter with Legion Academy was playing Joe in the top 16 of season 3 of Invader.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. For some reason I thinking of someone else, but yeah, no. I think that's it for us. We did. I was on your
Yeah.
show
Yeah. Oh, totally.
after
Totally. Yeah.
Northeast Open as well,
Yeah.
and that was a fun time.
Yeah. For sure. I mean,
At the time, I think we were talking about how we thought dewbacks were really cool, and I think tauntauns were crazy, even back
yes.
then.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I agree. Tauntauns are pretty crazily awesome.
even
But
it was yeah, it was like a month or so before they actually came out, and so we didn't know everything. But I remember being pretty excited about Creature Troopers.
yeah, for sure. Creature Troopers are fantastic. So, okay, so that's the point of connection there. Have either one of you met Jace before? Did you guys? Jace was at LVO, the same one we were at Doug. Matt, were you at that LVO, that first one?
Not the first one, no.
Okay, but then you were at this most recent LVO.
This year.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then you and I got to run into each other there.
Yeah.
Yeah, both went top 8 there. I think did you win your top 8 game? I did not. So
No,
Yeah.
I did not. Fortunately, I was
Uh,
very tired. Not a lot of sleep.
yeah, that was a pretty it was a good event. I really thought the event was awesome. But yeah, and you did rather well for the painting there, Matt, as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So have either one of you met Jace before? Like, because Jace, I guess you, Doug, you might have had a chance to meet him at the first LVO, but Jace did not go to the second one. So, but did either one of you guys play Gen Con this last year?
No, it's a bucket
No.
list thing. Jace, what's your name online? Uh,
ASAP 47.
Asa. Okay,
Yeah.
ASAP like with a P, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, he's playing in the Invader. So maybe potentially you guys run into him online. So yeah, as I said, Jace works here in the studio. So that's the point of connection there. But we had Gen Con plans, of course. That's
Yeah.
really
Repeat
super
of last
disappointing that didn't happen. We were both going to Worlds.
Yeah.
Disappointing that didn't happen. So, what events? Let's just pipe dream and say everything is up and running. What events do you guys have on the docket that you'd like to, or that you had planned to attend going forward here?
Well, Worlds.
Yeah. We've
Yeah.
missed that. We've missed that, Doug. We've missed that.
We're way past.
What about
Yeah.
Warfare Weekend? I don't know what
Supposed to go to Nova, but
Yeah.
that got canceled.
Nova's out. Yeah. Doug, were you doing Nova?
I was definitely gonna try to do Nova or Gen Con, but such as it is, I guess that's not happening.
I know. What weekend is Warfare Weekend? When does that take place? Does anyone know the date on that? I think there's still I mean, who knows? Nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah.
But that was one of the ones that I hadn't gone to that I was thinking about going to. You did Northeast Open as well, Doug, last year.
Yeah, I was I'm almost definitely gonna go to that as well, but I guess that's not happening. So, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
Jeez, it's like I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about like staying in tune with Legion or like being involved in Legion, but one of the big drives for me, if it's not making pieces, it's going to events and playing people. And with that off the plate, there's only so much you can do and look forward to. So I don't know what you guys feel or if you guys are hearing anything, but are any of your local scenes, are you having any attrition? Based on the fact that we haven't had in-person stuff, like are you seeing people sell their stuff or kind of telling you they're getting out of the game or shifting or?
No, I think we're in a pretty decent spot. We did a small local TTS league for 3 weeks. That was pretty fun just to kind of get the dust off and get the kinks out. But yeah, no, everyone's excited about getting the new stuff. I mean, we've been kind of waiting, and at least here in the U.S. And finally, we've been getting some new things. So I think that's got everyone excited to build some new stuff.
Right. What about you, Doug? What's the excitement level on your end?
I really enjoy Invader League when it gets to single limbs because I think we're really seeing the game that I enjoy, which is the more competitive side of things. Um, people love to talk about this is better than that, but then it's like a put up or shut up moment that I just enjoy so much. Uh, so I've been loving that. It's for me, it's like, I used to love watching like the playoffs when it was in the NBA or football, right? But for me, the Invader League is like the playoffs we have right now. So um, I've been keeping an eye on that, and I actually did a few streams and co-hosted for a few people like Kingsley and Zirconia, and that was really fun. And for some of those units, it's honestly like the first I've seen of them being used, because like I don't play clones, and I realize I should be, but uh, you know,
We're gonna talk a little bit about that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have done numbers, but they're like something like almost 80% win rate and after round one of the event, so they're doing quite well. There's some fluff in those numbers. I cut out all the mirror matches, and
Yeah.
and then the dark horse Frank Gao, who I don't know how much you guys know about that story, but
Well, it sounds like some of us don't, so it sounds like you got a story to tell.
Well, there's this individual by the name of Prairie Pirate, and he's a good fun guy to talk to. And apparently he's been banned from the Invader League, I believe 4 times, maybe 5. And
how many Invader Leagues have there been?
I think this was the 4th.
Well, he keeps getting banned from Discord, which kicks him out of Invader League.
Okay.
And so, not for cheating, he's just very flamboyant personality. And so he went under an alias and made it into Invader League single limbs under the name Frank Gao. And he made it pretty far in a lot of people's brackets, which upsets a lot of people like me because I had him going pretty far.
I had him going to quarterfinals in mine too.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyone that voted against Frank Gao made the right choice because he got disqualified because he was found out to before his game for single limbs they figured out that it was actually Prairie Pirate the whole time.
Okay.
There's some amusing antics there. One of them is Prairie Pirate's predictions had Frank Gao winning, so that might have been a clue.
Okay.
Another clue is Frank Gao is asking people. Frank Gao is asking people if they want to play against Prairie Pirate because he's a good guy. And in my Discord, he was because he was keeping it secret from even me. He was saying, "Hey man, have you seen that Frank Gao guy? He's looking pretty strong," and going on about his bid and such. Like he had a 30-point bid, which is quite aggressive. But anyway, it's a fun story for those in the know. I mean, it's always adventure in the Invader League, I guess. But he was playing Republic, and my philosophy with my prediction is if it's Republic, it's going to win. So I had a lot of Republic moving on, which we'll probably get back to Jace on that one because I just had to look at his list, and it's looking about as cookie cutter as it gets.
Awesome. Well, you know what? This sounds like an absolute fantastic transition. Not only do I appreciate the subtle shade thrown by Doug towards Jace, it alleviates some of the work that I need to do on this podcast for tonight. So let's do that. Let's maybe just lean a little bit closer to that mic. Sorry, we're sharing a mic tonight, so I'm going to just pop Jace up here in the big screen. Look at that. I'm going to put there we go. We'll put Matt and Doug, and I will just slide over this way just a bit there, Jace. Fantastic. There we go. All right. So Jace, give us your list. And don't skip on the cookie crumbs.
Oh, okay. So my list is Captain Rex with aggressive tactics and recon intel, 2 Phase 2 units with the Z6 and offensive push, 3 Phase 2 units with the Z6 and Overwatch, naked Phase 1s, and then 3 ARC Trooper Sniper Strike teams. And that is the list, full 800 points.
Okay. Initial reactions before we start tearing it apart.
Oh, I don't even know if there's anything to tear apart. I think this list is this officially Rexstar, as they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like did Luke Cook basically put that video out and kind of caught on.
Yeah, and just a point of irony here. I'll just throw this out. Jace's next game is versus Luke Cook, and
Oh boy.
And he is playing the same list.
Same list, same bid. So I told him, I was like, you better get the blue dice roller. Just hope that you win that roll off.
Luke Cook offered me a coin flip for our game. So.
Oh no. That sounds like something you would do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That guy's pretty lucky though, so I probably wouldn't take him up on the coin
Yeah,
flip.
right.
Yeah,
So.
that coin's got two sides.
Yeah.
Both say Luke Cook on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, Luke. This is what what he didn't tell you. Luke said, "I'm gonna flip a coin. If it lands on edge, you win. If it lands flat, I win." That's how that went. So
That better be streamed, buddy, because I want to watch that game.
I hope so.
yeah, I'm sure somebody out there will be streaming it. So yeah, no, but we really agree that clones are fantastic. I'm not playing clones right now, Doug. I'm all about double AAT. So we'll get onto that before we after we talk about clones. But the token sharing, the standby shenanigans, the fact that it doesn't really care about a bid because it's really strong in almost every mission. You're playing your opponent's deck every time, but Jace and I were talking. There's not really a lot of things that's just does terrible in. Doesn't have a lot of answers directly to armor, but it does have enough, I think, dice manipulation and decent pools that you can probably rely on rolling a few natty crits in there. So I think I've seen a couple 5 natty crit rolls come out of Jace here.
There's one, like 2.
Yeah, it's just awesome. Yeah, but what do you guys think? Matt, are you playing any clones at all, or I know you're painting a bunch? So is that where your head's at right now, or?
Yeah, so I've been playing them on TTS a little bit here and there, and yeah, they're really strong. Strike teams are just ridiculously good. I think they're too strong right now, honestly, because once you get in range with them, even 3 dice, 4 dice pool with lethal, I mean, it's so consistent, and critical is just really strong. So they do work.
Really, Matt has not watched any of my games play, where my arcs usually miss most of the time.
Right.
Doesn't mind.
Yeah, no, they're really consistent. Yeah.
In the last game we streamed, the Aussie player rolled double crit twice in a row with the same strike team. And then the next turn he rolled like hit blank, and we're like, hold on a minute, there's blanks on these dice? The double crit is horrifying. I mean, as an AAT player, I was not happy with this arc strike team. They're crazy. I mean, I think someone needs to like check those sniper rifles, because they're like a rocket launcher inside of it, and it's also shooting range 5.
Yeah.
And those things are scary. I mean, the variance is variance, and like that is the one maybe tiny weakness of that list, is that like it's all up to the dice. But I mean, critical 1 is a hell of an ability. Tactical 1's a hell of an ability. Token sharing is insane. Range 3 standby sharing is insane. There's some characters that just like my first time playing Boba Fett against clones, I jumped into range 3 to try to pick off a heavy weapon, and you just saw him with the heavy weapon at range 3. Overwatch went behind a wall, and I was just like, okay, I guess Boba's turn's over, because it's like that was my shit.
Yeah.
And that was the moment when I was like, this is crazy what's happening right now, because it's like Boba can't get in there and like snipe out or do something really cool, because he could either just shoot at me as I land, or move somewhere else and not even let me shoot him anymore. And that's at range 3. Never mind trying to get into range 2. Good luck.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm not sure if you saw that there, but you're getting a little trash talk.
I
here
did.
Okay, do you know this? Do you know this individual, or do I need to ban him, or are you good?
No, I know him. He's good.
All right.
Yeah, so our motto is roll crits and win. So the more crits you roll, I mean, that's all you have to do. It doesn't matter what you bring.
That's pretty fair. I agree. I'm actually a little bit fearful with all the clone sharing shenanigans with tokens that clone players are going to get called on slow play. for both a token distribution and pickup at the end of the turns, because the number of green tokens that come out from those clones is absolutely astounding. And it's, I think as a player, especially on TTS, because I'm constantly looking at lots of things to pay attention because I'm not super familiar with the platform, but you really have to pay attention to where tokens are coming from. It's very easy to miss a dodge or a standby or an aim that's kind of laying on an adjacent unit that's from the unit that's got one cohered out the back, the other unit's further back, but they got one cohered forward. So, you got token sharing at range 1, but, seemingly it can come from almost range 2 away if you take into the coherence. So that's one of the things that I think that clones have kind of made me do, is really take stock of the table. And what you see is not what you get a lot of times with them. So something to pay attention to for sure.
Well, one thing on that, first of all, I hope people are marking their units, because, I personally, probably, like right here, I got my little droid sniper, and he's got the little yellow dots on him, because I'm playing a million little droids. I want to make sure for me and my opponent that I know which one's which, so that my opponent doesn't have to keep asking me, and so that I can quickly cohere, right? But when you have those token standbys and all that stuff, you need to know exactly who's next to what and at what range, who has that token, which squad. So it's when we get back into real life tables, we got to make sure to be really on top of that. Also, in the game we streamed for Invader League, a guy used 11 surge tokens in one turn, and it was just after a while you just start feeling bad for the opponent. It's the dude's just running death troopers for a turn, So yeah, I mean, we were joking no way. It's funny because I ate my foot or whatever, because in the beginning of that turn I said he wasted his Rex 3 pip, because I was there's no way. At the time there was literally one or two things visible to the clone player, and I was what the heck? How is he going to use all those tokens? And then boom, 11 search tokens used. He killed a speeder bike, killed a dewback, and he killed Iden Versio. No big deal. And he took 2 wounds for it.
Let me just throw this question out here, and then we'll maybe transition, talk a little bit about droids, and then we'll talk about some hobby stuff. But just on the topic of that, and this is maybe controversial if people don't be offended, but whatever, if you are, it's just a question. Do you think that clones have taken a little bit of the strategy out of making decisions about critical actions in the game? And what I mean by that is, occasionally a throwaway unit is a throwaway unit. You're just simply, you don't have anything to do with that, so you take whatever actions, a dodge, standby, what have you. But the plan for that unit was to never contribute to anything. Now with clones, a lot of that is really just to feed something else. And so do you think that there is a potential that the token sharing has made clones too much of an easy button for players, and you're not making those tough choices about, do I aim here, do I dodge here, do I stand by, do I double move to get out of cover, to get in cover? Do you think that's part of the clone playstyle? Do you think that hurt the game in any respect?
I can give you an example of why that's true. So the reason strike teams are good is because they're independent of the order of operations. So you can either use a sniper as your first activation or your last activation. You're happy either way. You also most likely don't care if there's a token on them because of that fact. Now, add standby sharing to the other point is you most likely don't need a token on your snipers for them to be good, right? So now think about a phase 2 or phase 1 unit. If they have standby sharing, they also act the exact same way. So you pull them first, okay, fine, I'll move and take a standby. I'm not going to move into range of being shot back. Nothing's changed in the board state that it puts me in a bad situation. And I probably will use that action later in the game. So it's basically the exact same thing as a sniper strike team. Go figure, everyone's playing strike teams. I think they're like 50 or something, or more, 70 or something in the Invader League single limbs right now. So I think that's right there the reason. You are cutting out the interesting part of the game, which is like, what do you move first and why?
Right. What do you think on that, Matt? That topic?
Yeah, I think the standby tokens are the real issue there. I mean, there's really no wasted actions with clones. And I know strike teams are really strong and kind of spamming out activation. I actually tried out full ARC Trooper teams just for some fun games, and they actually work really, really well with Rex's 2-pip. And trying to hit people really long range with some Pierce stuff. So there's some other tricks that you can kind of use where you can get some really good alpha strikes out with the ARC Troopers. But spamming strike teams is kind of, I mean, everyone's been doing it for 2 years now with every faction that you can do it with, right? So, I mean, I think, I think having the standby token sharing is really what the problem is. Not to be
Right,
going
and
with everyone, but
that's what I'm getting at. And honestly, the fact that you can use your snipers as like a main unit just shows that you're allowed to use your core units almost like snipers because they're independent, right? They can go early or late, and it doesn't matter. Well, so then you have that freedom to, okay, you know what? If all my core units go early, I can save my sniper and do some crazy blast that normally like Bosk would do or something, right? Like normally Bosk is like the guy who goes at the end of your turn, right? Now it's like, hey, I'll just save this arc sniper because I don't even care if my phase 2s go early. They'll have standbys anyway, So you see my point is like you're right, the standby sharing is the problem, but why is because it allows you to play the game completely differently. Like if for example, if you use a stormtrooper on turn 1, first activation, he's gonna do nothing, right? You're probably gonna hide him somewhere or move him to an objective. But with clones, you could do a whole lot of other stuff. You can think about, okay, if he's standing over here, this standby is going to cover like this whole angle, and no action's lost, right?
Yeah, there's no such thing as a wasted action for the Republic.
And further to that point, there was in chat pointing out around the 8 clones are typically 8 activation, but here's the thing, clones at 8 activation, because of exactly what you've pointed out, that you can effectively put a pause on an activation to go later. I don't think that translates to the traditional 8 activation. I gotta go first, I got outplayed here, I got outpipped, I have to do something with this, and you play that sort of that delay game where it's like I'm gonna first last. Well, with clones, there's not a lot of first lasting. It's whatever order I go in, and then whatever order I choose to activate these things in later with all the standby. So for me, I think it's really added a wrinkle into the game, and I'm not 100% sure yet if I like it, because it makes a new puzzle in the game that you have to figure your way around, or if it's too strong, and it's actually going to make the game a little less fun, a little bit more vanilla.
Well, Jace and the world champion are both running 11 activations, so let's stop with 8 activations.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's accurate.
And so okay, right, and I personally, I'm biased. I think the standby sharing is the problem. I think they've earned the right to have their search tokens. I think it's core to their concept, and the sharing makes sense that they're like helping each other out. But I think the standby just takes it too far, and I think it'd be an easy fix to just say, hey, clones don't share standbys anymore, unless it's like Padme or something. I'm okay with Padme doing it because that's her thing,
Yeah.
But that's my 2
100%.
cents.
Yeah, because you could have a wounded unit, one guy left, he hides behind a wall and standbys, and now you have a full unit able to use a standby. So it's kind of crazy.
I kind of always joke with Jace that I say, like, the most popular unit in the game is a unit that's not yet released, which will actually be the unit that comes out with the most pre-nerfs to a release ever. And so by the time we physically get them in our hands to play with, we may actually just no longer want to use those anymore. I mean, other than being awesome models, I have fear for the arcs, that they're really good now, potentially being shown to be too strong, and before we even get them on the table, they're going to be far weaker than they are now.
Do you guys want to talk about situational awareness that just got leaked today?
Let's have it.
Well, so now you can give any unit that has a training slot outmaneuver for 2 points. So critical is way less effective, especially for armies that like dodge tokens like tauntauns and things like that.
It's what, a training slot?
Yeah.
Training slot, 2 points plus 4 on if you give it to a support unit, I think.
Support, yeah.
I don't know though. Do Tauntauns even take that?
Like 6 points for each Tauntaun unit. Like,
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I think the ARC Troopers, the reason why they're so good is because not all their cards were released, with TTS right now or with Invader League. So I think outmaneuver or this upgrade kind of balances them out a little bit because, I mean, that critical is just. I think critical is one of the best keywords in the game right now. Besides Pierce and all that kind of stuff. Because think about it this way: you could be in cover, you could have armor, you could have all sorts of stuff. You just roll, critical 1, and you're pretty much bypassing all that kind of stuff. And now that you can cancel crits, with the dodge token, it makes dodge tokens a lot more usable. Where in the past, I think they were kind of like a wasted action a lot of times.
Well, how about the fact that someone has Guardian or whatever, and you roll 5 crits or something, or some guy's got like, Obi-Wan has like 4 dodge tokens, and you roll all crits. It's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Whoever rolls more crits and critical, has the advantage, obviously. So I think this will help balance the game out, from that standpoint, where, you can't just take everything that has critical 1 or surge crit or whatever and just roll dice.
Yeah, I'm gonna count. Oh, whoops! I'm gonna counter that though with the only characters that really are relevant right now with dodge is probably Iden Versio and the Tauntauns. I maybe Jin. It'd be cute with her. I don't know if you guys have any other characters that come to mind. Anything else? Yeah, because like Iden's got the whatever it's called, Nimble or something that lets her keep using her dodge, and she's got is it quick thinking or whatever?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, you could even put it on. I mean, you could put it on phase 2s. You could put it on shore. I mean, not that you're gonna put it on shores, but I mean, you could put it on a lot of stuff, and it's only 2 points. So
yeah,
I don't know. I run into a lot of situations where it's like, okay, you're going to shoot at my unit. I'm in cover. I've got all these buffs on it. And the only way that you can damage me is if you roll crits. Because I've got dodges up, or let's say Obi-Wan does his 1 tip or whatever, and he's got 6 dodge tokens. The only way you're touching him is if you're rolling crits. Now, if he
can
has
he take that though?
Maneuver.
Yeah, he has a training slot.
He can take it.
Yeah.
Oh, he does. Okay. Yeah. He could use the help. It's a shame Dooku can't take it.
Yeah, Dooku would love that.
Dooku just needs to be more expensive. Just add more points to him.
Well, 2 points.
Let's just get that guy buffed right up. So, okay. Well, I think that we've opened the door there. Let's come back and talk a little bit about droids maybe at the end, because I want a hard shift over here to some hobby action. So. Let me just go first real quick, just because I got the camera up. I'm just going to show some stuff. Shameless steal here. So I've been talking about droids and playing a military-themed droid unit forever, and somebody beat me to the punch on the camo scheme. So shout out to that individual. I don't have the name, but this is kind of what I'm doing with my AATs. We're going to talk about a little bit about double AATs here in a bit. Hold on. You guys don't need to see me. Let's get some people that are far more better looking than I. There we go. There we go. We'll do that, and then we'll get rid of me. Perfect. So yeah, I'm just starting on the AATs here. So got the camo scheme going, and I'm going all gray themed droids, and I'm going to be doing a snow base on here. So I wanted to get the model done because I'm going to do a snow themed tutorial on that. I've done one before, but I'm going to show how to transition from a gravel base to a snow base, because one of the things that people often like to do is transition and make new bases for their armies without having to buy all new models. So that's upcoming there. So I thought that scheme was kind of cool. And that's what I'm doing for my AATs. I just love the model. This one here was actually painted up by another Jace, not the Jace that's currently here. But this is kind of the clone theme that I did. I did a really dark gray and red, kind of sticking out really kind of like gray models. So He did a fantastic job on that, really good weathering. Got a little baby Yoda on there. And then I took all my Bark crew, because I'm not running Bark speeders at all, and I have them kind of all adorning my tanks because I think that kind of looks pretty sharp. So that's kind of the scheme there, that sort of red and kind of a dark red and white. So that's going on there. So this, again, Jason, nice job on that. And then these are my droids. And I'm just going to make Doug's head spin here in a second, because I don't paint or identify the rims, primarily because I use these for photographing, but as a player I'm quite conscious to ensure that I either keep them clustered or in a specific orientation when I'm playing, and always a full transparency for my opponents. But mine are kind of themed. It's a little hard to see here, but I have specific basing elements that distinguish mine. So this is a smattering here, so this is not a unit, but I'll use like large rocks, no rocks, a combination of plants, things like that. So they're very identifiable. There is a little bit of dialogue that has to go with that, but again, I'm going for the aesthetics as opposed to the competitive nature of that. But typically, if I'm going to a large event and I feel that's going to be an issue, I'll actually just paint a small stripe of color on the back. But then it's easily painted over later on. So that's kind of what I do there. So yeah, so this is kind of some of the basing schemes that I have been doing. Just a combination.
Didn't you mention on a previous podcast about how you would put like all of them are in a river, and then these guys are next to like a tall weed or something,
Yes,
kind of like
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I have a couple combination here. So this one here has a double stacked stone, for example, so large stones. So I have a few that have large stones. I have some that have small stones or rubble. This one has another droid head and a small rock, so they're very, very flat. A few others I have absolutely no stones on them at all. So just a combination of that. When they're together in a cluster, they look very identifiable, but really what I'm going for is that unified theme. So when you're setting these on the display board, I don't want the purple and the pinks and the greens to really stand out, because when you're aesthetically trying to please the eye, purples, greens, and pinks jiving with snow just don't do the trick. But that's just kind of my thing. So you've obviously shown us kind of what you're doing for your basing. Jace can talk a little bit about his, and Matt, of course. What are you guys doing for your basing? I know you guys spend a lot of time on the painting, but let's just focus for a minute on basing, and then we'll transition to some painting techniques. Go ahead, anyone.
So when I do my basing, I do it pretty simple. I go with the same thing that Sean does. I like all of my things to look the same. I don't like all the bright colored rims coming around. So what I do is I put down all my ground and everything, and I put down my tufts, and then each one of my units has a different colored flower tuft on them. So one's got a yellow flower, one's got a purple flower, one's got a green one, just so every unit of the same type has a different colored flower, so they look the same because they have most of the same tufts, but they each have one different tuft for each unit on each base.
Seems legit.
Yeah, I guess it's an easy identifiable from a tabletop's perspective. One of the things that I don't necessarily like, and this is mostly from another game, but a lot of people will paint their identifying markings on the backs of their bases. But the reality is, when you're playing an opponent, that's the least visible side of the base. You know, they generally orient their models going forward, so it's a little bit tough. So I guess it was probably okay when you had like four-man and five-man units of stormtroopers and, you know, a few distinguishable features. But I think where it really gets complex is with both clones and droids. You know, phase 2s and phase 1s, they're certainly identifiable. However, when you get them in a mass, as they like to play all within range 1 of each other, that becomes a challenge. Droids, that's just off the chain. 35, 36 droids all jammed in together, you know, playing them really, really close, that becomes problematic. So I think there's that real fine balancing act between the aesthetics and the logistics of playing those models.
You know, one thing too is like Ellis, who runs like the European Nationals, he just brings like 10,000 rubber bands to his events as a TO.
Okay.
And they're all colored, of course. And he'll just walk around, and if he sees someone like unmarked, you just start putting the colored rubber bands around the necks of the units. And I realize in the moment it's not the most pretty thing, but like, hey, you're in a competitive environment, just
Yep.
run with it. And then at the end, just take the rubber. It's not like the rubber band is in any way, it's literally like dropped on, right? Like
Yep.
gravity is holding it on. It's not like damaging anything. And if people are worried about, or like, I mean, Sean, come on, you're a very talented artist. I saw your minis in person and all on the internet, and no, you shouldn't be held back in your artistic abilities. And if you're in an event and you don't want to do anything with colors, fine, just rubber bands or some little sticker that will fall off at the end of the day or whatever, and you're done with your tournament and you get to have your pretty minis, right? So,
I really like that
you know,
idea.
yeah.
I'm kind of wondering about just in along those lines. I'm wondering if a rubber band wouldn't actually like those really small ones wouldn't snap around the base of a unit.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Gave me an idea. So I thought that's actually where you're gonna go with that rubber band story, but that's cool. Matt, what are you doing for your bases and stuff? Because again, very talented painter, and you bring your stuff for painting competitions as well, and you don't want to detract from your minis too much. So
Yeah, so basing, I like to have all the bases the same and with a black rim on it. I think the black rim makes it pretty striking, and I'm totally against the clear bases. I don't know. I know some people love those things, but I just
Yeah.
think it doesn't look right, But that's personal preference. Yeah, so for my Empire, I kind of used flock and some snow flock with some tufts, and I did that after the model was painted. But for my clones right now, what I'm doing is I used a Vallejo product where I put it on before I primed. And then I actually haven't really finished basing any of my clones yet. So they're going to, I forget the name of the planet in one of the episodes, but it's going to be like kind of like pink glowy spots and stuff. And I'm going to try to find some red tufts to try to make it more alien looking.
are you doing like Felucia? Are you doing that like?
No, it's not Felucia. It was where like Rex goes in with like all these guys, and it's nighttime. It's really dark.
Oh, okay.
Umbara.
Umbara.
Umbara, yep, Umbara, yeah. So I'm gonna try to do an Umbara-based type of theme, which
Nice.
it's gonna be challenging, but I think it'll be cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
is there any fluorescence tied into that? I can't remember that planet exactly, but is there any like iridescence?
Green, I think not a lot though.
There's a really cool stuff. Green Stuff World has put out a line of fluorescent paints that like are like iridescent paints, and yeah, they're really sharp. I haven't ordered any myself, but I was thinking about just getting a few to do a basing tutorial. So I actually just picked up a bunch of GW stuff. I don't typically use GW products, but I wanted to do a little bit of a how-to 3-step from a technical to a contrast and to a wash, just kind of that 3-step product, because people are always asking about basing and doing them on the cheap, and I honestly think that paints are cheap, but basing material is not necessarily cheap. But I think that a rushed base makes a really good paint job look bad. And so I'm always trying to advocate for people to really spend time on their basing, because the reality is oftentimes that's what you actually see from a tabletop perspective and not the paint job. And when somebody pulls that up and to look at your awesome paint job, you want to have a base that kind of equally matches. So that's just my take on it. But I think that people get really turned off in terms of thinking that basing is complex and complicated. So just today we were helping out a guy in a group chat about wanting to make mud bases, and I told him like just PVA and some sand, man, mix in some brown paint, mix it up, the consistency, and then paint over certain parts to make them a little bit more wet looking. And he did it, and it looked fantastic. So do you got any models close by, Matt, that you can kind of show us here?
Yeah, sure. So
All right,
let's see if I can get this in here.
Let's pop you up here. We'll go there. We'll put Doug there. We'll put. All right. Just go the other side. There we go. Okay. Nice.
There we
nice.
go. Okay.
Rex.
So here's some Rex. I don't know if you can see them really clearly, but the base. So you can really just see the overbrushing from the airbrush. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the base black, and then paint those glowy spots there. So I got Rex over here. Posted up Obi-Wan earlier a couple months ago. This is what I started painting when quarantine started, so I had some inspiration. I still need to do the logo on the top, the Jedi logo.
Right.
And then here's some phase 2s that I'm working on. I've been trying to up my face game, and so I watched some videos.
I've been seeing you share some stuff. So Doug's got a special delivery coming in here. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sweet. So those are some, and right now I'm trying to finish up the phase 2s before all the new stuff comes in. I also have a droid army that I haven't really been doing too much though, but I did one Grievous, kind of like a red theme, which is kind of cool. And then here's some of my older stuff, Krennic, Death Troopers that I've been playing. I was going to do a double Death Trooper Krennic boss blitz for Worlds, and that just ended up not happening, obviously. But yeah, I really, the Death Troopers were the first time I really started highlighting with an airbrush. And I think once people just buy an airbrush and get practice with it, it'll just change your painting forever. I mean, it's just so easy, and it looks fantastic. So that would be my biggest piece of advice for anyone watching this is just buy an airbrush, buy a used one, you don't have to have the fanciest one. I have one airbrush. I don't get too crazy with it. So that's what I've been working on right now.
Let me ask you this for you guys, and for me it's model dependent, but maybe you guys just go based on your favorite style. But are you guys like paint your model and then do a basing and then apply the model to the base? Are you guys glue your models on the base before you do anything, paint it with it on the base, and then do your basing after? Are you guys paint on sprue type guys? What's your approach to kind of the assembly and the painting order?
So I do the base. Well, with the clones right now, the base of material is done after the model is glued on, and then it's primed over that. But what I do is I don't glue the arms or the head on, because it's probably impossible to do detail work like that if you have those things glued on. You need to just take them off and do it. I mean, that's pretty much it. Once you're just holding like the guy's little arm or something, it allows you to just do, lines or detail work, or even shading and stuff becomes a lot easier because you can get the angles that you need and things go a lot faster. So, I mean, that's kind of how I do it. I know some people kind of glue everything together and put it on there, but I like doing. I don't mind having the basing material on when the model's painted, just because I don't know, it's just an easy step for me.
All right, Doug, how about you? What's your style?
I put everything together because I shoot for tabletop standard, so I've had to learn, because when I started I was kind of a newbie, and like Legion was my first painting game, so I had this like perfection, everything has to be perfect, even if no one will ever see it. But I've been watching videos and people basically are saying like, don't do that, like focus more on what people actually see. So I've taught myself to shift to like more tabletop standard, and just if like the armpit is barely visible, then I'm cool with like barely painting it. I will say the obvious negative of putting the mini together, especially like, I don't know, like Count Dooku or something, there's like that threat of like oops, where you like go for the cape but you like hit his back instead, and then it's like, oh man, like I do hate those moments. But and that's me. I'm tabletop standard guy. Obviously not on your guys' level, but it's pretty much. And then as far as the bases, I'm evolving. I still never base. I do have a friend who will do bases for me sometimes, but I only do bases for like heroes. I'm not gonna base like 80 trillion stormtroopers. I'm just not into that. And then I do like the stickers, but with my clone or my droids, I did put them on the base and then prime them because I kind of liked the color anyway. Like I can show, like I did the Geonosian, right? It's like the maroon color, and I just let the prime hit the base. I was like, you know what? I don't even care. They're in Geonosia anyway. It's gonna be like desert ground, so like whatever. So I do think about that ahead of time. Like for example, I didn't put my bases on my vital assets for things that I was gonna paint like lead belcher metal, but I did put the bases on the things that I was gonna paint like a gray or white because then I didn't care, like I can alter that color, right? I do agree too, by the way, I love the black painting the black rim.
Black rim,
It just looks so slick. And when you're saying about the reflective part of like the see-through bases, it's like it throws me off, right? Because like the whole idea in my mind of the base is it's supposed to like connect to the table, and when something's like a mirror, it's like what's going on? But yeah, anyway, so that's pretty much what I do with it.
All right, Jace, what is your preferred style?
I assemble the mini and glue it all together, glue it to the base. I don't glue in the arms. Depending on the mini, sometimes I'll put in the head, sometimes not. But it's mostly the arms I worry about the most, and then I'll prime it, paint my mini, and then I'll do the base after. But as soon as I start gluing the body together of the mini, I glue it to the base.
Okay. Well, I'm not the same as any of you. So that song, that one of these is not like the other. So for me, I approach when I am painting, and I occasionally will paint, but mostly I'm painting terrain. But when I'm painting minis, so the droids, that's my project right now. So what I did with my droids was I knew what theme I was going to do first, and my theme's always dictated by the ground that I'm going to work on. So for my droids, I did all 56 droids entirely non-generic, so I manipulated almost every one of them. I have like a sitting down rocket guy, a bent over guy who's looking at a head. I have a guy who's missing his head. I have a guy who's shooting his foot. So I've altered all those. So for that reason, Matt, I don't go your style in the sense that I don't put my models all together. I have to put everything together because I'm really looking for where my model's going to end up, what body shape that's going to be.
So I agree with you for droids. I glued those things together and just sprayed them. I didn't really care. Droids, the B1 battle droids is like the worst thing ever to assemble and do.
Fair.
Yeah.
Dude, if someone wants to make a shirt, I survived building B1s. It's like needs to be a shirt.
Do Legion Academy merch right there.
Yeah. More merch. So for them,
you can't dry fit them. They're not. You can't dry fit them. So I think it's impossible to paint them like with the arms kind of floating on them.
Yeah, and so like I didn't do it because I don't want to paint them separate. I mean, honestly, I think if you're gonna paint anything on sprues and just basically shoot paint on sprues, you could have probably done it with droids, to be perfectly honest. And then you just have a few touch-ups. Like they probably lend well to that. But the reason that I do that is because really all my models have to be dictated by what I want them to do on the base. So I have a guy that I call Captain Morgan. So he's literally got one foot up on two rocks, and he's got the binos up, and he's given the point and all that sort of stuff. So mine are really largely dictated by that. And as a result, for these ones, I actually glued them to the bases before I did the basing work, with the exception of the rocks. So I would have to have the rocks first. But the reason I did that is because I did snow, and I like to have my snow actually look like my droids are standing in it and walking through it. Now, for everything else, including my stormtroopers, what I did was I actually they were painted for me, but I cut them all back off the bases because I have mine done on like a slate sort of stone and vine base, and I wanted my guys to be standing on stone and not in stone. And so for those, I actually ended up gluing to the bases. Now, one thing it lends really well, I can do all the bases far quicker when I'm not having to work around 10,000 feet. When you're trying to get that basing material around a foot but not on a foot or in a foot, that works a lot better. So for me, largely dictates what the process I go through on what I'm actually doing for bases. So if it's water or snow, glue them down because I want that over the foot. If it's anything else, I want it on top, including grass. So it definitely works quicker when you don't have them on there, but there is a little bit of labor intense process when you need to pin or glue, because one of the things that people may not know is when you try to glue feet to a basing material, it's actually not very strong, and it could potentially actually lift your basing material right off your base. So you want to be very, very careful of that, including paint. So super gluing onto a painted stone, for example, can actually lift your paint right off. So I've had that happen a few times. So yeah, but I mean, all that just goes back to tell you what Doug said, and don't paint any troopers and just paint your heroes. So just speed that whole process right up. So okay, well that's cool. Couple more hobby questions for you guys. Matt, what's your what's your kind of line that you like to use for your hobby materials? Do you use a plethora of let's say paints and basing materials? Are you brand loyal, or what's your jam?
So actually, I kind of started painting it again a few years ago when I bought an airbrush at Adepticon, right before Legion was announced, and then I ended up getting 2 Vallejo sets, and I still have the GW washes, but I really like how the Vallejo paint, like the consistency of it and the coverage and stuff. So, I mean, that's pretty much what I've been using. Is I would say 95% Vallejo products right now.
Do you shoot the model air, or do you actually thin game color?
So I started out using Game Air, and then once I kind of figured out you can just thin down just game color by adding some flow improver to it.
Yep.
It quite frankly, you use less paint, and it's a lot easier. It covers better, in my opinion. So if I'm going to do a lot of like a lot of basing, or like kind of like a base color down on a unit, I'll use the game color. But if I'm doing maybe 1 or 2 models, I'll use the Game Air, just because it's a little bit easier to kind of control how much paint you're shooting. But yeah, you don't even have to buy airbrush paint. You can, once you get the right mixture of stuff. You're good with that. So that's what I've been using for all my stuff.
So I actually come from the same products. We'll talk about this, but I have a different philosophy on that, because I have a ton of model air and I have a ton of game color, and I primarily use the model air for everything now. And I'm actually slowly transitioning to I don't replace anything in the model line, and I get everything in the air. And the reason I do that, and I even brush paint with the air as well.
Really?
Yeah, the reason I like it is because bottle consistency from batch to batch and over, when I'm let's say I have to pick up, like, you don't probably pick up and shoot, like, let's say 8 bottles of neutral gray, but I do. So
Yeah.
for me to mix up 74 pots in my airbrush of neutral gray to the same consistency is more problematic and potential for error than if I'm going 8 bottles of model air neutral gray straight out of the bottle. So my formula is like a drop of flow improver, drop of thinner, and put that model air in, and I never have to worry about any ratios or consistency. So when I'm painting a project over a month or 2 months, I might start with something, do a whole bunch more work, and then come back to another piece like that. And because I don't have to remember that recipe, I like it for that reason. And also, when I have to do touch-ups, I like the thinness of the model air for touch-ups, as opposed to putting that thick game color on, or trying to mix a very small batch of game color to match that previous work. So for me, that's kind of the approach that I take. It's not a knock on either one. I think it comes down to a preference. But for that reason, I actually like the model air, regardless if I'm airbrushing, because you're absolutely right. You don't need airbrush paint to airbrush. But I do like that I can shoot it straight out of the bottle, and I like that I can brush it right out of the bottle as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I haven't gone through 8 bottles of anything, so you do a lot more painting than I do from that standpoint. So, but yeah, if you want to, what's great about it is that you can interchange them, and the colors are the same. It's just a formula of the consistency of it. So, yeah. That's really what I enjoy about using that paint line.
I really like that you mentioned flow improver, because a lot of people don't necessarily use that, but I actually use flow improver and thinner. The flow improver will thin your paint a little bit, but really it's for like tip retardant. It's like to keep it from drying out on that tip. And again, if you're shooting it for models, the chance that you're going to dry out your tip a lot is rare. But if you're shooting like a couple square feet, the chances of you drying out your tip for shooting that paint through is very likely. So that's where the flow improver really actually does help me out. But shooting a small amount of paint with a couple drops, it basically does the same thing. But I actually use the both in combination. So yeah, airbrush cleaner, airbrush thinner, Flow Improver is like my go-tos. I'm always stocking up on that. So I'm buying my cleaner in 4-liter jugs now. I'm buying my Flow Improver in liter jugs now. So I've really stepped up from that. You know, that $4.99 bottle. It's like, you know, 50 mils, and it's like, oh geez, this stuff is, I gotta be really, you know, kind of ration this out. I'm like, no, Flow Improver, it's in there. Thinner, it's in there. I basically take
Pour it
cups
in
of,
there, man.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Doug, I know that you probably have a ton to share on this topic. So what's your go-to model color?
Yeah. I bought the what is it, Army Painter starter kit, and
Fair.
then I went into Citadel and I copied Sarastro because when I was a noob, that was like my first introduction to actual painters.
Yep.
And then like when I started playing Marvel Crisis Protocol, I started buying into contrast paints because I just wanted to hammer those things out, and they're like superheroes. So like it's like blues and reds, right, and yellows, and right, it's just simple colors. And I have learned that contrast paints don't do everything well. So they have
Yeah.
like a terrible purple, for example. But like the black is amazing. I've heard the white's good, but I don't use it because I usually prime white. But oh, and I love the contrast skin tones. It's actually made me brave enough to do a face on Iden, because I know if I just prime it white and throw the contrast tone on there, it just kind of makes the face have like the right coloring.
Yep.
So that's pretty much my history on painting. For the newbies out there, I would recommend contrast paints, but you have to like kind of learn how to use contrast, and they don't do everything. And so you really got to it takes some experience to even make them look acceptable.
I think you said
There's some good videos out there though that will
Yeah.
tell you which ones to buy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you said an important thing there, and maybe Matt can attest, and Jace, but I don't know of a person who's got into hobby and painting and has done it for at least a reasonable period of time that hasn't picked up a variety pack, a starter set, a pre-packed paint set. We all do that, and so I think when you said you got the Army Painter starter set, although you may not ever need all those colors, or you probably never used some of them that are in there. I know when I got into it, I bought the Model Air, the 90 paint set. I bet you I have 89 of those bottles over there because those colors are just not in my wheelhouse. I use them for maybe tinting or things like that, but I don't use a lot of the pinks and the reds and the purples. But we all kind of go to there because it is a nice starter. It's a nice place to start. Along the lines of that, though, what I've noticed a lot of paint companies have done, and Fantasy Flight's no different, is they've really started to not make starter sets or intro packs, is they've really done themed packs. So Vallejo does a lot of like wood themes. So you get kind of all those varieties of wood and a nice wash that works. Or they'll have a face and flesh pack, or they'll have an armor and weapons pack. So they've really packaged those things together. So if you go looking, and it doesn't matter, you can use whatever brand you like. Vallejo is just one of the ones that has a lot. AK Interactive is another company that I use a ton of. I'm not sure Matt or Doug or Jace. Jace will know because we've got lots of product here in the studio. But they're another company that I really like, and I've been experimenting a lot with AK's filters. With washes. So I'm not sure if you've used any of those, Matt, before, but basically when you put a wash down, you're going to get kind of a unified tone. It's going to tone down your base colors, but filters are going to be that another variety, another layer that's really going to mute a lot of the colors that you lay down. So filters are kind of cool. And I use a lot of enamel washes in conjunction with acrylics, and as long as you're sealing in between, enamel is not going to wreck anything. So I use a lot of enamels as well. A lot of people kind of steer clear of them because they really have a lot of acrylics, and they mostly have stuff that's works for acrylics. You can't use acrylic thinner in enamel paint, just FYI. When you put it in, it's just going to be like oil and water. But people learn that stuff the hard way too. So. But yeah, that's just one of the nice things about hobbying, and that's why I like talking about it, is some things that I've been painting a long time and doing a lot of things. I've never heard of some things that people are using, and oftentimes when you send somebody down that pathway, that rabbit hole for products, it ends up at a really cool result for them. They're able to, they've been doing something and beating their head against the wall, or as Doug's pointed out, been afraid to sort of try something. and then a product comes out that, you know, now he's a magician. You know, his faces, he probably, I mean, you probably agree, your faces are probably better than they were before, and it's because you're using those washes.
Yeah, pretty much. I will say, so two funny things about the Army Painter starter kit set is they come with a little like guide on how to paint, like explain what shading is, or like their shader that they sell. I didn't know what that was. So like my first minis I was painting were stormtroopers, and I thought, oh cool, this shader, I'm gonna throw it all over these white stormtroopers, and now it's like, well, now they're dudes who fell in a swamp. And the other thing that was fun is back in those days there was no sprues. I didn't know what sprues were, and it came with clippers, and I just threw those in like a corner bin. And then when the clones came out, and you know the new faction, I was like, oh, I can use those now. That's what this is for.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my starter noob story.
Well, I mean, I think that spectrum tail is important, right? Where we all fall on a spectrum of things. You know, when it comes to painting, I'm certainly not on a upper end of any spectrum at all. Like I'm still learning a lot of you know, color theory and how things work. I know how products work. I know how to make the basing. So I'm kind of working my way backwards. Doug's obviously coming the other direction with the hobby aspect, which is fine. We need to have a starting point, so that's awesome. The fact that you read the pamphlet that came in the starter kit is also impressive, because most people would have just fired that thing right out. So, but I mean, you read it, you learned something, and there you go. So, and what you did to your stormtroopers is not actually an accident. Or not a mistake. That's just a happy accident. So, you now need to sell that story as these are well-worn stormtroopers that fell in mud, and that was the style you were going for. Don't ever say that you weren't going for that that end product.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Always on purpose.
yeah, fair enough. So Jace, where are you at in the hobby realm? So, and one of the cool things about having Jace here is like, you know, we do lots of teaching here, inevitably, because it's, you know, when I have all hands on deck, I can't do something, or we need to rush something out, I'll kind of we'll do like an impromptu tutorial right here in person, not film, but hey, this is how you do it. And he's able to replicate a lot of the stuff, so, and then apply that in his own craft. So
Yeah, I use a mix, mostly of GW and Vallejo. Not just that I like one more than the other, it's just I find there are some shades that I want that one has and the other doesn't, or there's some shades that I just like how it looks a little better in one or the other. Like, I like Vallejo's blacks and grays and a lot of their blues a lot more than I like GW's, but I like GW's beiges and most of their greens more than I like Vallejo's. So it's just more of a color tint that I'm looking for when I find my paints.
yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with combining things as well. So I mean, they're all acrylic paints in the end. So I use craft paint on occasion, not to paint models, but
That's my black rim, that's it.
yeah. So, and you guys, I'm not a black rim guy. I use a color called anthracite gray. And so, let me see if I can pop this up real quick. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that color at all, but that's mine. So it's a really deep gray. And so what I found is that if you use black on snow, the contrast is really sharp. And so I like to see that's. There we go. I like to just use that deep gray. There we go. That's a bit better. It's almost like a black, but not quite. So you can just kind of see the guns a lot closer to a black color than that. So, and that's just a preference. For other things though, I straight up agree. The black rim is super nice. So for me, the rims really got to play with the basing color. That's just again just a preference thing.
That gray reminds me of German gray, it's like this magical gray that Vallejo has. It's the model color line, and
Yep.
I think it's kind of close to that. And I love using that for all the weapons, and then you just do a normal oil wash over it, and it's fantastic. So, you know, that's like a must-have for anyone doing this. I feel like the other
Yep.
thing I'd suggest people to get is to get a wet palette, and that's going to help you really control your paint, and then it's going to allow you to spend a little bit more time so it doesn't dry out. And then what was the third thing that I was going to recommend? I forgot. It'll come back to me. But yeah, so that gray color is really cool. I like it.
I got a super funny story about gray colors, and it just occurred today. So this tank that's right here, I posted a photo in our group chat, and Jace goes, what color, what light gray did you use for that tank? And I said, light gray. It's literally called light gray. And then I said, before you ask the gray, it's called gray.
It's called gray, yeah. It's like super simple.
This is painted with light gray and gray.
Sean's going to invent a color called plastic gray, and it's going to make it look like it comes from a square.
We have this running joke that I actually have 50 bottles or more of various colors of gray. And so I was going to come up with my own line of paints, and I was just going to call them like plastic gray, just gray, another gray, yet another gray.
Nice. Damn, man. I for me, it's browns. I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot of brown. I probably have like...
I guess I use mostly natural materials to do what I would be painting brown. So I guess for me, I do have a lot of browns, but I will often look for a starting color of something in brown, because I think brown is the most natural thing to start with for ground material. I know a lot of people like to put their stuff down and they base it all black and work up from that. I actually think that you have to do more work to bring your ground colors up from black. I much prefer to start with either a green brown or a really deep brown. That's kind of my preference.
One super newbie trick is have different prime colors. Like I'm priming your B2's metal. Oh my gosh, okay.
Yep,
I primed like Grievous metal. I prime, I don't know, a few other things. And then my droids are all like that color I showed you, the Geonosis. I just bought that at like Home Depot, a spray can. Like, here's my AAT. I'm just going to have them the same color. It's just like that brown. And then I'm going to, do things with it. But like, for example, on a B1, it's like Geonosis color. And then I just do like scratch in, metal, like metal scratches all over them. Right. And then you like shade them and I'm pretty much done, Maybe like I do some binoculars, and I have to paint his gun, but like there you go. There's a B1 done. And I survived making B1s, but even that took forever. But like my tricks, I've learned to think ahead. Like, is it like for like Aiden, I had to do white because I wanted to use the contrast for her face, and then I'll just use like some black contrast or whatever. But for Dio, I primed him black because he's a droid. He's black anyway, and I'll probably just scratch him again, like with the silver color, and then just put like some red lights on him or something, and I'm done, right? So I just try to think ahead of what it's going to look like and prime the color.
So again, I'm not super forward in my planning like Doug. So for me, and maybe Matt could attest, I actually prime everything regardless of final color in my favorite primer. And however, on top of my favorite primer, I will occasionally use a second layer of primer in the Vallejo. Has just come out with a spray line. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that or not, but it's like all the basic colors in Vallejo. So your grays, your light grays, even your gunmetals, their desert sand, their yellow sand. They have a lot. They actually have primer colors that match their model colors or their air colors. And so,
oh wow, I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Well, I'll tell you, the world's tables that we did up in the desert theme, that was a lifesaver, because what we did is we did like 16 cans of paint. We sprayed the whole thing in a nice desert yellow to start. And so our prime color we were able to bring it up from there, but rather than like, prime in black and then have to lay a base color down, we were able to prime straight in our base color, which was fantastic. So a lot what Doug was saying, that forward thinking, but I actually use Tamiya fine white primer. It's a fine white filler primer, and I use it on everything. I really like it. It has a nice powder finish. And so I find a lot of primers are still a little bit too thick and a little too shiny. So this is super. It's called fine white, but it's really like it's very, very light gray, effectively. and I really like it because it goes down and it fills any scratches. So sometimes when you sprue cut, even though you sand and you get that you sand off that connection point, you still have a little bit of either scratch marks or lines. But I love this stuff because it goes on, and one of the things it never does is it never fills in your lines, so you guys can see the panel lines. So this tank right here has, at this point, has 3 layers of paint, and you can still see those lines very, very clean. If you were to put 3 layers of a spray can primer on this tank, there's a good chance you never see those lines again. They just get filled in.
Yeah.
So this stuff is really a powder finish. It goes on it's got a really nice adherence, but it doesn't fill in anything. So, and a new product I'm going to use on this that I've never used, and maybe you guys have, I'm going to be using the Tamiya panel liner. It's like an ink, and it has a really, really fine applicator, and basically all you do is you just drop it into a point, and it just runs your lines. So it'll just flow itself. So a lot of people use like technical pens, but I'm gonna give this panel liner a try, and it's used a lot in the railroad world, basically to do like box cars and a lot of like the ribbing that are on cars. You basically just put it on and it just fills all those lines in. But I bought a bottle yesterday just to give it a try, so I'll let you guys know how that works out. But not having to paint these panels, not having to try to get a brush in there and then clean up all my mistakes and my oversprays and things like that is going to be quite nice. So I will actually do that as one of my final steps, and then I'll tone everything down with another wash. So I'm not sure about you guys, but I'll use washes in about 3 or 4 stages within painting. I don't just have a wash layer at the end or anything like that. And I'll actually seal my models. This model will probably end up having 3 or 4 layers of sealer throughout the painting process. So I actually seal between my layers, and I find weathering is a lot nicer when you're able to work on top of a sealed layer. So for example, with your stormtroopers, if you were to have sealed them and then applied that ink by mistake, that acrylic wash, you would have been able to come in with white spirits and actually remove a bulk of that, never touch your underlayer of paint, and actually take most of that back off.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so just some stuff. So awesome. Well, I do appreciate all that hobby chat, but let's end off with some more competitive Legion here, as people kind of come in and out. And specifically, Doug, we're going to talk about your favorite list currently and mine, the double AAT. First off, how many reps you got in with that list?
I'm not sure. Probably not. It's not as many as you would think. Probably like maybe 15 or so.
Fair. Well,
Mostly people wanting to play against it and experience it or whatever.
Yep.
It's I'll give credit to my list that I ran to Urza's Mage. His name is Rich. I don't know. You might have met him at LVO at the second one. He was hanging out with Luke Cook a bunch. He was running ATST. Did you play against him? You played against him.
I knocked him out in the final round of.
You did. You did.
Yes.
That's right. So you did meet him.
Yeah.
It was his idea. The AAT list.
Okay,
he's a nice guy. He also went to Neo. We carpooled, and we both ran like similar lists. He has kind of a joke like, "Oh, you won Northeast Open with my list, so you'll probably win Worlds with my list." And I think his one like kind of genius moment was, obviously you run uplink on your core B1s, but he was having a comms relay on one of them.
Okay.
So that you would give an order to your AAT, the OM guy, which then allows you to give an order to a core unit, which then gives you an order to all down the chain, and then you would hit the comm relay guy. The comm relay guy could arrange to give an order to the other AAT, and so now you have always double ordered AATs with a target lock or whatever aim token and orders. So that was like kind of like the eureka moment where I was like, okay, this is playable, and let's explore this more, because like when I saw that armor has like a funny history in Legion. It's never been considered like the tier 1 super list, but I feel like the AAT had a lot of things going for it, like the fact it could shoot through dodge tokens to beat up on those tauntauns, and it shoots far, like range 4 with all its guns.
Yep.
It's like it's got a lot more health and a lot more good rolls, and of course surge tokens every single turn because you have orders. So now you're like a Death Trooper tank with armor, which, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So it hit me that, like, if I just run these two guys as like mobile snipers that are kind of like picking off like units that are overly exposed, for example, like you just randomly wipe like a whole B1 unit or whatever. You could just really hurt people pretty bad if they weren't, you catch them off guard. And those AATs move really well. Also, they pretty much fly because they're so tall.
Yep.
And you can go up and down hills and like really catch people with shots they didn't expect.
Yep.
Because I don't know if people know, but the rule is anything that's shorter than the antenna of your AAT, the AAT can go on top of it
Yeah, I'll
and
tell
go
you right
off.
now that people don't know the rule because you have to look it up almost every game because it's like it's unique. It's a unique model, and we've
Yeah,
not
and I've
really
had
had
people.
anything like that.
It's like in its own little special place. I've had like people like multiple really well-known players question me on that rule, and I've had to rip out the rule book because people will tell me like I looked it up, I couldn't find it anywhere. I have no idea what you're getting this from, and like get and like start a fight with me. I was like, hold on, let me go find it, and it's like so I saw the page. It's like really hard to find, and then it's like this little blurb about movement, and it mentions that part I just mentioned. So
Right.
It's a thing. But
Before you go
yeah, you'll catch
too
people
far,
off
Doug.
guard.
Before you go
Yeah.
too far, just give me your version of the list, and then I'll quickly counter with my version of the list because I have also played this list 16 times. However, I've played this 16 times in the last 2.5 weeks, so but I'm infinitely familiar with my version,
Nice.
but not yours. So
Well, I don't know if I mean, I have the version I would have played at Worlds, and I did play in Fake Worlds, but I don't know that that's like the best version. I know what is his name? R1H1 ran it and on the single or in the Invader League this season a little bit, and then he jumped
okay,
out of it. But the core is two AATs. One of them has to have OM.
yep,
One of the B ones has to have recon.
yep,
You definitely run link targeting array. I was running Lock Durg on the other one.
yep,
There was some moments when that was really clutch, and mostly because of the AI part of him, where
yep,
sometimes you just couldn't get him in order, or you would use your comm relay actually to give an order to the other tank because of the way that Grievous was positioned, and the spacing and stuff was a little weird.
right,
But you could trust Locke to not like freak out. Also, I would run. So both of them run. What is it? The torpedo that I forget the name. The
high
torpedo that
energy,
can't be dodged.
high
Yeah,
energy,
high
yep,
energy shells is
yep,
probably a little undercosted to be honest.
yep,
But so sometimes you would just do like shoot recover, and that's all you had to do because your dice were so accurate. But with the Lockdirg one, you would run armor piercing because one so I was really wrestling with armor piercing, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's because you're gonna kill armor." Kinda. It's really because he's like the mobile one, and I would use him as like the more crafty tank, while the other tank was more like sticking to the army.
right,
Um, and the range two of the comm relay came in huge for Lockdirg because sometimes he's mobile and you didn't have to stick right on him. You could kind of be like range two near him.
right,
And so the key is anyway, so you like because you're moving so much, you can't recover your high energy shells. So you use one shell on a turn, and then the next turn you use the other shell, and then when you use that other shell, the and
hmm,
high energy refresh for
yep,
free. So you could kind of do this like shuffle back and forth the whole game,
right.
and so that was pretty much the concept.
And are you running
And
a
every
eight activation list?
yes, Joe Beavis with the gun, aggressive tactics, and strict orders. And then I didn't run any like endurance or anything because I didn't have the point. I do have the points, but in the list I was running, I didn't um, because I ran two of the sniper rifles. But I think that might have been a mistake. And honestly, anyone could change the rest of the list, and they could be right. I really I don't know. I'm not willing to fight over the rest of the list because the core is just the relays, the two tanks, and Grievous, General Grievous, right?
Let me let
Um,
me let me give you mine so you can tell me how wrong I am with this version. But so I'm actually running a 9 activation version of the list with a 16 point bid.
hmm.
I'm really dictating.
Whoa.
Yeah, basically every deployment is a version of a long march. either roll out a major offensive, so I can basically position the same way, or straight up long march. And then the other one I do is battle lines, where I can still skew down to one end. So I always want the right corner. I always want to have the ability to kind of face my tanks on the long end of the table if need be. So I'm running Grievous with Esteemed, so I always have it every turn. The Guardian every turn, sorry. I'm running it with Endurance, and I have Aggressive Tactics. I do not run him with the gun, just on how I play Grievous and how I want to keep him more in my ball. So I shoot him out when I need to, but I rarely have a turn where I'm just trying to use that gun. I'm always double lightsabering. I run 6 B1s, no extra bodies except in one. I run an HQ and an extra body. And then my tanks are actually redundant. I run HE on both, and that's it. I don't run any pilots. The list has full activation control every turn. The AATs don't have an order every turn, but they are either my bag or have an order both at the same time every time. And so often turn one, I don't worry about AI attack because I still have that move option. If I do, that's fine. I can barrage off turn one. And so every time I have full activation control every turn. There's almost never a time I don't. Well, there isn't if you play the cards correctly. I like the 9 version versus the 8, and I will typically, if I'm shooting my shells, I'll just let it refresh on its own on cycle. But I'll be honest with you, I'm primarily barraging both times. I position usually first turn and never move, but with the long deployments, I'm able to actually angle onto the center objectives, which again I choose in almost every one of my objectives, so that I don't necessarily have to move my tanks. The only time I need to is if I'm going to make that big run to block the key position. But like I said, I've played it all 16 times, pretty much played the same game, pretty good results on it. Secret mission is really the Achilles heel of it, because it's really tough to stop that extra point, and you have to just make sure that you score enough points to outscore, and it's not worth shooting R2 with the list. But that's my version. I know it's a little different than yours. I go for the control, but I don't feel that the tank needs to have an aim really to be effective, because the dice pools are so darn good. And with the shells, you have critical 3 already, so having an extra surge for offense is not really important. It is nice to have it for defense, but like I said, multiple turns I can just get it with aggressive tactics anyway. The 16-point bid has been monstrous.
Yeah, well, vital assets wouldn't have existed at Worlds, and so that definitely, I could see why you would want to, I mean, because if you get the right positioning with those things, we could, I don't know how much we want to dive into AATs and how much people want to hear about it, but yeah, like the tanks love Long March, right? And Lock Durg would sometimes be like the R2 hunter, right? Yep. So because like if you're in Long March, it's way easier to kill R2 than it is in any other deployment. So you're right on. I will throw some numbers at you though. Without an aim token, you are 57% to do 6 or more damage. 56%, and with the aim token, you're 91% to do 6 to 7 damage. So it's like a 40%
on the barrage or on the shells?
Energy shot, high energy.
Okay, so that math definitely works out. So here's the thing: on the shell turns, the turns I'm using the shells, that's actually the turn that those would be the turns where I would set up with either a push or an assault, and so I can take my own aim action and shoot the shells with the native gun.
Okay. So for me, I was doing like recover instead, or maybe not. I would do like move shoot with range 4, where you are losing. Well, you would have the shot, but not without the aim, or you wouldn't have your aim, right?
Yeah.
I'll just tell you, this secret to my list in the moment was, I would try to first of all let someone position something poorly, and I'd kill it. Ideally, like
Good
something
strategy.
squishy.
I like that. Very solid.
Isn't that what Rexstar does right now? Right? Yeah. Oh, range 5, you left your sniper squad completely exposed. I'm just gonna blow them up, and then I'll just turtle, and I win the game, right?
I may have done that in one of my round robin games to 2 sniper
squad. Yeah. So and watch out, Luke Cook's gonna try to do that to you. So that's what I was doing, except I was doing it with a giant tank. Um, and then once I would pop off and get someone with my, 91% chance, I would then kind of make them come to me. And often I did not lose any minis or any squad the entire event in 6 rounds until my last game. And then I lost a tank. Uh, and, I don't want to blame Dice, but Dice happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
I will say that that list has a fantastic ability to keep activations on the table. I've been kind of reporting back to the group every single game, and I've had 5 of those games have been turned to calls, like just it's over in turn 2. Just the amount of damage that you can put out is really, and I say it's a 4 threat list. Sure, the 2 tanks are obviously going to draw a lot of fire. Grievous is always doing Grievous things. You got to worry about him. But honestly, the biggest threat in that list is what I say is the 6 B1 squads that remain relatively unscathed turns 5 through 6. That is your threat.
Right, I would save them. You
Yep.
save them. It's the same philosophy with Tauntauns, which I know you're familiar with, which is they're squishy, but they have so many hit points
Yep.
that if you can save them to like turn 5 and 6, you can just swarm like a key position or something,
Yep.
and nobody can kill all those bodies. It doesn't matter that they're not great bodies,
Yep.
So you kind of just outlive them with hit points. And so that
Yep.
was the whole thing, right? The tanks do all the work for the beginning of the game, and then Grievous and a million B1s just swarm you at the end, and it's like you don't have enough to kill them, even if you're rolling super hot fire.
Yep.
So I like the mobility of the tanks and the high accuracy. 'Cause usually people didn't give me that many chances. Ellis like conceded to me on like turn 3 because he just lost like a B1 squad in a Droidica Deca, and he's just like, I can't win this game anymore. Like I can't even get to you. He was running like B2s, and it was like a giant gap of like huge, and it was like D-Day, and he's like charging me with B2s, and it's like, dude, it wasn't going well. And then what was I gonna say? As Matt said, it'll come to me, but yeah, in the later rounds, you can just swarm objectives and get people with that. That's really the other strategy.
Yep.
And so you try to capitalize on your hit points. And sometimes there was some games where I would kill something and then literally like be running the whole game. And so what would happen is they would be like chasing my tanks, but I would have positioned very aggressively early, and then the rest of the board was my like kiting area. And I had games where like for 4 turns I'm running away from the Empire, and I would shoot and then run, shoot, run, and then they would be like sprinting after me. But those tanks are so fast,
Yeah.
they only do the 1 speed, but you're moving very far. And so maybe they'd get like a range 4 pot shot, but that wasn't going to kill me, right?
Uh,
So I
I,
did a lot of kiting.
I will say that I think that the strafe mechanic for movement in the game is really has opened up a lot of versatility for these large base units. We've seen the Gav tank and the early plights of trying to move that thing around on a table and fitting it, and even with reposition, it just became nightmarish at times. Both the Saber and the AAT with the ability to strafe, I think, makes these 2 relatively large bases quite mobile, quite versatile
Hey,
on the
Sean,
table. Yep.
are you aware of the damaged engine rule with strafe?
Uh, no, that you can. I don't think you can. Correct, because you can't reverse and you
No,
can't.
you
Oh, you
can, and
can.
it doesn't hold it against you.
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't
So
think
I
I
believe,
haven't ran into it, but I would have thought you couldn't. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I didn't think so either. It came up in my final game and
Okay.
to make it to top 4, and I end up losing. But the judges rolled in and said, yes, you can do it. So the ruling on like engine specifies, what is it? I think you can't go backwards, and you can do 1 move forward, but it counts as 2 actions or something. Is it
Right.
something like it's
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Something like
A
that.
move
Yeah.
is 2
Uh,
actions. Yeah.
right. However, strafe isn't one of those 2 things. So you
Okay.
can do a strafe with 1 action and then fire your gun.
You can move you can't go forward
The
because that's just
strafe.
two
They
actions.
missed an
Yeah,
RNG entry.
yeah, it sounds like they missed an entry.
Yeah.
We only got 5
Hey,
other
let's
people
keep that
who are
on the
gonna know
down
that.
low, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't going on the internet, right?
Oh, what have I done?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I was impressed with that. So you could theoretically double strafe or strafe shoot or shoot strafe. So basically, the damage engine isn't affecting you.
That's pretty
But yeah,
fantastic.
it's funny because you're right. That's what you mentioned, like how you go up on things and people don't expect that. People also never expect the crazy strafe.
They
You know,
don't, and the angles that you can open up. So like I talked about this in another episode when I was talking about double armor lists and how you can actually your opening position with tanks isn't necessarily always straightforward. Like quite often, I usually deploy on a skew, just because that skew gives me more versatility on my left and right strafe. So I'm able to really change angles around a building. I'm able to open up different firing lanes that aren't necessarily, all guns pointed forward, right? It's really easy to point your tank and be like, this is the lane that I'm covering. But if you deploy your tank on an angle, you can still likely cover that lane, but that strafe left and right, that angle of attack is so wide that I really find that that's throwing opponents off.
yeah. Another thing I would use a lot is as long as let's say it's let's just say it's a building and the building's lower than the AAT, you can lean your AAT against the building as like it's difficult to movement, but you only move it one anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's legal to have the thing at 45 degrees. And sometimes that would work out for you really well, where you couldn't quite make it up on, let's say, a building, but you can kind of lean on it.
Yep.
And as long as it's 45 degrees, it's a legal movement. Now, you can't do that if the building's taller than your AAT.
Yep.
But that's another trick that you don't really see coming that often.
No, I really like what these vehicles have done for the game. I'm hoping that they kind of explore this a bit more with the other factions. And we had it so early with the ATST, but I really felt like the gap between heavies was so wide that it really hurt the ATST. And I think it still totally has a place in the game. But I think it's, as with most things, it just got replaced by bigger, shinier, more efficient, more effective, more cost-effective units. So, but I do hope that they continue down this route and we get some more stuff. So, more stuff to paint.
Yeah,
So.
the ATST was really good for a brief moment when the mortars could give them orders. And what's his name? Starscream did pretty well making it to Invader League with an ATST, and I really think he could have won his game or games. And I did play against him also at Fake Worlds. He did really well. Our game was goofy as heck, but I don't know. That's probably another story. We basically had a standoff for 6 turns, and I think we finished in an hour because we just did pass, 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 pass as we stared at each other, trying to wait for someone to flinch.
Right.
And what ended up being a problem was I was blue player, so he had to do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. And then I think I ended up killing points, and he'd killed points, and then I won on points. It's a lot of winning on points with tanks. But no, I agree with you. The odd gap of making armor good, but then not taking over the game. Even I will say, I was really nervous with. I don't want this game to turn into tank warfare. I don't want everybody to bring a tank, but I do want tanks to be viable. So I think the AAT is going to be hopefully viable going forward. I think we all hope that we're going to see a generic, CIS commander. That's going to help a lot. I think the Staps are really cool too. I was skeptical at Staps. They seem to be doing okay at making a splash in Invader League, and I could see a world where when we don't need General Grievous anymore, we could fit some Staps in, and that could be interesting.
Right.
Just don't suicide them. That's a bad idea. You gotta do hit and run, and they're independent with orders, which is what CIS is trying to do. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting stuff with FFG.
Fantastic. So we're hitting about 1:55 here, so we'll probably close it down. But let me leave you with this final question. We'll go round table here. give us all your next big faction or list that you're gonna go explore if you're not already exploring one, and what is your either next painting item or the item that you're waiting for the most to get, and we'll start with Jace.
Oh, okay. So.
And don't say clones, because if you do, I'm just passing.
He wants arcs.
It's a different clone list that I want to try with the two phase 2 offensive push and 2 full arcs with uplinks to get the 4 order Rex 2 pip. I want to start playing that, and I definitely, the next thing I have to paint is I gotta paint my saber. I haven't painted that yet, so that's what's up next.
So all I heard was a bunch of clone shenanigans.
The AAT is getting painted after that, but
you know how to make Rex's 2 pip even better? Do Rex's 2 pip with 4 units. Fantastic.
uplinks everywhere.
Just crazy. All right, Matt, what do you got coming down the pipe?
Well, I have been painting clones, so one list that I've been messing around with on TTS is using the flamethrower ATR keys with the scout move, and they're pretty fun because they get up real fast and people have to deal with them. So that might be a thing, in the next, when are they supposed to come out? September, October. So maybe for LVO next year, we might see them on the table. And then for new units coming out that I want to paint, I do want to get a really nice paint job with Padme. I think she's supposed to come out next month.
Okay, so we're 2 for 2 on clones.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, Doug, you are potentially either the
clones
worst person to go to here, or you're gonna save us.
No, clones suck. I do want to show off. This is the General Grievous I was going to play at Worlds. He's like Hero Landing. I don't know if you could see that.
Oh, that's yeah.
I asked Mr. Judge if it's okay, and he's like, yeah. But Talk Polite said he'd let me use his Grievous if people had issue. But now that there's cylinders, he's okay no matter what, right?
Yeah, he's fine.
But I love him. So I really was excited to use him. AATs, of course, right? I got them finally. It's funny. I don't. Sean, you said you're gonna play AATs at Worlds, right? And they had this whole plan where the AATs were late. They're gonna give them to us.
So
I
was actually not playing. I was not playing AATs.
I was playing clones.
I was playing clones.
Look at this, three of you.
Double saber. Okay,
well, so don't know, or so basically the AATs were delayed, but then they felt bad, so they promised they would give them to us before Worlds. Then they were mistaken and said they would give them to us at Worlds. I was freaking out because I'm like, how do I fit 2 AATs in my luggage even to go home, right? I don't even know how big they are, and I don't own anything to contain them. But so I was really freaking out of how am I going to paint them? How am I going to transport them? I don't even know how big they are. How do I buy foam for something? I don't even know what it feels like. So it never happened. So woohoo. But now that they're here, I'm kind of picturing in my head what I would have been dealing with. And it's man, this would have been tough. I building them was kind of wacky too. But anyway, so AATs for sure. I have Iden. I'm excited to paint her. I really enjoyed the game Battlefront, and I read the book, so that's pretty much it. And I really want to see Stabs as well. Also, we got to get those stupid Inferno Squad special units. We still don't even know what they are, so that could be really exciting with Iden.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, what I'm looking forward to is the Imperial Specialist article. Still waiting for that one to come out, 2 years later. I have, I was waiting on AATs for sure. I have those. I was actually kind of looking forward to getting this is why I'm saying I was hoping you weren't going to go clones, but I think I'm looking forward to the arcs. I think the model is absolutely well done. They're really sharp.
Man, I'm surrounded.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was hoping you weren't going clones, because I was like, oh geez, I'm dogging on clones here. But no, I think the arc is actually a model that I'm I was really looking forward to. So I have a full clone army all done here. I got to get to basing. That's kind of my next project. I'm not really looking forward to painting much, although these AATs are going to be kind of a fun project just to kind of do them up in a little bit different scheme. I enjoyed doing the droids. Happy to be done. I actually have. I don't know why, but I bought 8 boxes of B1s just for funsies. I was gonna do some like wonky two boxes worth of conversions. I ended up converting all of them, so I'm probably just gonna do a bunch more, but just make more comedic droids. But some of them may actually be casualties for my saber base, and I may do a few riders for my AAT as well. So. Because I think you got such a wide and large platform here on this AAT, it almost screams to have a few guys just sort of, riding shotgun kind of thing on the AAT. So, but I really love the AAT. The model's fantastic. Do you have yours assembled yet, Doug, or you just have boxes?
They're prime. This is my
Yeah, right.
prime one.
Yeah,
He's
that's
got
right.
it.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
You showed us
Oh,
that. So.
another thing too, Urza Mage, Rich was gonna bring everybody a Lockdirg to Worlds. He had made like 80 of them.
I actually
And
have a
they
Lockdirg handy here.
fit in the AAT. He's actually mine's in the mail right now because it's like, oh, I guess I'll send it to you by mail since we'll never see each other again. But I'm really excited to get my Lockdirg and put them in the other AAT.
I had a Lockdirg here handy just when I was cleaning up before I podcasted. It's handy, but yes, it absolutely does. It fits in there. It looks fantastic. So I'm gonna do one of mine with a magnetized Lockdirg and Droid Commander, and then I think I might do the other one just sealed hatch, but also magnetized, just so I can go down, in the future, maybe do something else there. So I actually thought about having my other one with a B1 diving in and the legs kicking out the top of the hatch. Just for funsies. I'm not sure if you guys have seen, but somebody had done up, I'm not sure who, I'm remiss to know the name, but a Jar Jar that's hanging onto the barrel of the AAT. You've seen that?
Yeah, saw that. Yep.
I wanted a Jar Jar under the tank, like getting run over.
Yeah, that seems legit. I'm on my saber. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the just underneath, recessed a little bit, I'm going to have a set of droid legs, and then on the top of the saber, detached from the legs, I'm going to have the body sort of leaning over and kind of grabbing onto the front of the saber. So I got a little bit of a morbid theme going here with between my clone and
Nice.
droid bases here. So these guys are a ton of fun. I really like the fact that you can really make the B1s quite posable. They were all, as much as we've dogged the model and said why was the head 2 parts, and no one can give a good explanation of that. It's ridiculous, but they are a pretty fun model, and I did enjoy all 56 of them. So yes. Okay. Well, any final thoughts? If not, massive appreciation for you guys to come on. I mean, I hadn't podcast for 2 weeks, and I was really jonesing to come on and hang out and talk hobby with some people. Glad Jace was able to come over here and hang out, because I was getting tired of talking to myself. But always good. Matt, thanks for coming on for your first time. Doug, for returning. You guys are both welcome back anytime. Hopefully this wasn't too much of a slog for you guys to get through, but I'm sure people will appreciate your insights and your thoughts. So I hope to see you guys at another event soon. With Gen Con off the table and not having traveled the Worlds, I'm going to be looking to add a couple other events. So, you said Northeast Open is off the tables. Is that correct, Doug? It's not happening for sure?
Yeah, there's no way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So
It would have been in July, so
yeah, then definitely not happening. Warfare Weekend, I feel, is later on. I'll have to look that up, but I think I remember Ryan saying that they had made plans to still attend, so it maybe potentially sounds like it's still a go. So I'm not sure if you guys have opportunity to get there, but if not, I was kind of predicting in my mind that LVO may be the next in person, which wouldn't be terrible, and it would probably make LVO that much more huge.
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's on your guys' docket to go there or not, but
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
I told
agree.
everybody to go.
One. Yeah.
Yeah, I recommended LVO to a ton of people, and like Rich went, and
Yeah.
Fran was all excited to go. A ton of people, were like, "Yeah, I'm going," And I regret not going, but who expected Worlds to be canceled? I mean, we didn't know
Yeah.
at the time, so
Yeah, I mean, no one predicted that. So for sure, and I don't even know if they've. I guess I could pose this question: do you guys know, or have you heard anything? What's potentially happening to invites for, like? I mean,
no.
how big can 2021 be for Worlds? I mean, we had a lot of qualifiers for this year, and presumably, well, I mean, I guess we're kind of hurting invitees for the next year just because limited events, but so that may work in favor of keeping the numbers down a little bit, but presumably we'll have even more people qualify. So
I've heard nothing.
yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll all get sorted in the end. It's the least of people's concerns right now. I mean, we're lucky that we still have platforms to play on and models coming in the mail to paint. So I guess that'll just have to satisfy us and tie us over till we get to throw plastic at each other. So
Yep.
Can't wait. It's gonna be good. LVO
yeah,
2021.
I might
That's
I might
gonna
even
be
have
it, man.
I might have an army painted myself by then, but no promises. So I was joking with Jace because usually I'm like, hey, I got this list. I'm like, I need this and this and this and this painted up. So he'll rapidly speed paint everything for me, and then I'll play the army. So I have a Jace that paints for me, and I have a Jace that assembles, and I have a Jace that plays against me. So usually one of the Jaces can kind of help me out here. So it's good to have friends, and I'm sure you guys have you have your own Jaces, I'm sure, in your local community. So happy to have guys like that around. So well, awesome,
Right.
folks. I'm just gonna bring us back here on screen and say proper a goodbye to all you. And if you hung out and watched this, or you're watching tomorrow, fantastic, thank you. We'll be back, or I will be back, and I think Joe is planning to join me next week. So we'll wish them all successful surgery and a speedy recovery, of course. And then we'll be back doing the show. I think Jace is gonna fill in with me in the interim in the episodes that Joe can't make it. So we'll be bringing you guys some regular content. So I'm eager to see what you have painted next, Matt, and I'm eager to hear all your clone crushing stories, Doug. So it's you and I versus the clone world, apparently, with their AAATs. So
Yeah. Good luck, Jace, in your match.
Thanks.
I can't wait to
I'm gonna
watch
need
it.
I'm rooting for the clones,
Good luck.
and yeah, I don't know who I should root for in that match. So I joke that I'm Jace's #1 fan, but I don't know if I can cheer for clones or not here. So yeah, I mean, what was that? The guy who got eliminated? What's his name? What's his secret name?
Oh.
Prairie Pirate.
Oh, he's well. I mean, he's crushed some brackets already, so I'm not
AKA
sure.
Frank. Yeah.
Yeah, Frank Gal. That's what I was going with. I was gonna go with Frank Gal. Yeah. So, he's not.
So you're gonna have Jace, Frank Gao, the brackets for everybody, because I have Luke Cook winning the entire event. So sorry, Jace.
Oh.
Go.
It's okay. I picked Luke Cook to win this match because then if I lose, I still win.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
exactly what I tell people that played against, tougher opponents. I'm like, hey man, it's win-win, right?
Yeah. I was like, there's no way I could pick myself. I'll pick him, and then if I lose, I still win.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a lot of clone love and hate and all in one showing. So
Yeah.
we'll bring you that info if we have it for who's casting that, and I'll be on trolling the chat for sure. So look for me in there. Yeah. I'll be I'll probably troll Jason in on private chat too. So I usually do. So yeah, I don't give many intel. So just before anybody says that, I usually just shit talk his dice a lot. So
That's it. All I get is oh wow, man, hot dice tonight.
yeah, it's always hot dice with clones. I mean, when you fix everything just into crits, it seems like you always have hot dice. But yeah, we've clearly
Show crits.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that, Matt. You should just get that on a T-shirt. We'll sell
We've
it
been
through.
trying to. We just haven't done it yet.
We'll promote it through Legion Academy for sure. We'll get some I Survive 56 B1s, and we'll we'll promote those for Doug, and I don't know what kind of
Yeah.
shirt I can make, but
Sean just wants a double AA t-shirt.
I just want to double it. Yeah, well, and so here's a question. Sorry, we'll end off right here. What is the name of your double AAT list, Doug? Because I'm looking for a clever name. I have one for mine. I'm not sure if it's clever or not, but
I don't know. I got no name. Sorry. I'll steal yours.
Okay. Well, I'm just calling mine. I'm a big fan of the A Team, TV show, long ago. So I'm just calling mine the AA Team. It's like the better version of the A Team. So I mean, anytime you can. I mean, if I could take AAA, that would be the best. But I don't think unless I'm playing Epic games. I mean, I was thinking about breaking into the Epic scene and just being the only guy that's playing it. But yeah, so I'm going with the AA Team. That's my list name until I come up with something better. So yeah, but yeah, well, it's a work in progress. So we'll come back to that. So all right, guys. Well, thanks very much, and we'll say a good night to you. And look for you guys in the future. Like I said, join us anytime or pop into chat just to troll or contribute. Either way is perfectly fine. All right.
All right. See you later.
See ya, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Later.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.